right, so thank you for being on this call with the APTA Geriatrics Balance and Fall Special Interest Group for brainstorming and ideas for Falls Prevention Awareness Now Week. So yes, it used to be day, but now it's Falls Prevention Awareness Week. It'll be September 21st to September 25th. As a reminder, that's not the only time we have to prevent falls. They happen to occur all year round. So feel free to integrate these anytime you'd like. I'm Dr. Jennifer Vincenza. I'm an associate professor with the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences and the chair of the Balance and Fall Special Interest Group. We also have other members of the executive committee on this call as well. We have got Heidi Moyer, who is not prepared doesn't want to be on video. So Heidi, I think you could still do a reaction like a hand wave or something. She is our secretary. We've got Susie Ryer, who is our technology chair. We've got David Taylor, who is our clinical community liaison. I'm just looking through who we have. I think we have Brett Wright, who is one of our student liaisons. We have, let's see, probably Haim Nesser on here, who is our clinical liaison. And sorry, I'm looking through everyone. Did I miss anyone on our executive committee who helps with all of this hard work to disseminate this information? And that might be Annie Riley. But I just wanted to recognize all the members. We've also got a vice chair, Shweta Prasinth. We've got another student clinical liaison, Holly Bennett, and a chair of our outcomes measures task force, Elizabeth Wang Xu, who you'll be seeing a new outcomes measures toolkit coming out in the next month or two. So let's go ahead and start the call. What I wanted to do first, Haim, are you on? Okay. Heidi, do you want to wait for
I'm here.
Oh, Haim, hello.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining. Are you joining by phone?
Yes, ma'am.
You need me to show the toolkit. Well,
please.
Okay. So go ahead and talk while I pull it up.
So our task force, we produced the first version of the Fall Prevention Awareness Day toolkit last year, and thank God it's been a really good response over the last year. For this year, we decided that as we implemented it ourselves and others have implemented it, we felt that we can make it much more inclusive to be used throughout the year. So we went to work and basically did a rehaul of the toolkit, and it's ready to be released. Actually, the link is live, and I know Heidi posted it in a couple of the groups where the new toolkit is updated and on the website. So basically, just to recap what the main new updates of the toolkit is that the focus switched from not only for being inclusive of physical therapy, occupational therapy, we made it much more global, much more inclusive of other healthcare professionals, including social workers, nurses, undergraduate students, so that it can be used by not only us, but by healthcare professionals as a whole. So there's a huge emphasis on the interdisciplinary role in fall prevention. The other main update to the toolkit is that we switched from the primary role of giving you the tools to create a Fall Prevention Awareness Day event to being a comprehensive guide throughout the entire year so that you have the resources to make any sort of fall prevention screening or awareness event, whether it's in a community, whether it's in your clinic, wherever and whenever. So there's a lot of new resources that have been included to make that happen. And then some of the new emphasis also is that it just became much more inclusive to include other things that play a role in fall prevention, like cognitive screens, and then there's also a depression screen. And you'll see as you go through it, there's so many more resources. I think we added in between 20 and 30 different resources and updated some of the ones that we had. So it's much more inclusive.
Great, and I have it pulled up here, assuming everyone can see it. So you can see you can click on one link and get what you need to download, or you can download the whole toolkit. Not sure if those of you saw, what we did was we put in the information. I put in my name and my email. That's all that's required. You don't have to put in an APTA user ID. You can. The reason I say that is please share this. This is publicly available, and we put a lot of time and effort into this for other people to be able to use it as well for falls prevention. So share it with other organizations, just trying to mute people here, other healthcare providers, et cetera. And a couple other things I want to note is even if you're not necessarily doing an event, there's some wonderful PowerPoints available that are completely there for you to use and edit as needed. Please just include the acknowledgements, and you can include your name on the first part. So there's 52 slides on the community one. Obviously, you can include or omit what you need to. There's also a clinician one. So if you're giving it to other healthcare providers, that clinical focus with that appropriate terminology. Again, that is long, but that's so that you can pull and use what you need. It also has the new study algorithm that's available on there. And some things you might look at are these suggested resources, especially considering this call and that we're trying to brainstorm. There are resources available from nationally known organizations that give you other avenues or things you can use for. Here's some articles and videos for falls prevention. Canada, the Falls Loop has quite a bit of information as well. National Council on Aging, Fall Prevention Center on Excellence. So you could see we try to have all this information available for you on one site. And these are the ones we vetted, not to say that other ones shouldn't belong there. That being said, we would love to hear from you, and please email us if you find anything that's user-friendly and available for us to add to this. Heidi or Haim, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, that's it.
No, just
Enjoy
please
it.
use it. We spent a lot of time working on it, so share it. And like Jennifer said, you do not have to be an APTA member to have access to it. So this is open access for everybody.
Thank you for everyone's hard work. Okay, so now we do have our special presenters, and we appreciate our guests coming. We've got Sarah, I might butcher your name here, Miglaris.
That's pretty good, Miglaris. You just
Miglaris. Okay, Miglaris. Gotcha. Okay, and Christina Kriminger, and then I think you said we have another.
Oh yeah, we've got gangs all here. Dr.
Please recognize them.
Yes, Dr. Lavering Garner, Dr. Nancy Smith, Dr. Megan Edwards-Collins, Dr. Cynthia Bell, and of course you've already mentioned Dr. Christina Kriminger, and then one of our members is on the road, Dr. Allie Hartman, so I'm not sure if she'll be able to join via phone, but Dr. Kriminger, and did I miss anybody? We have a big team and they're awesome. So Dr. Kriminger and Dr. Garner are going to take you through the presentation that we have tonight that will tell you as much as we possibly can about some virtual fall risk assessments that we've been doing since COVID put the skids on fall prevention grant activities. And we're very happy to answer questions, and I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Kriminger and Dr. Garner. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're so excited to be here. This is something we're really passionate about, and we've been very busy this summer working on, so we're excited to share. So we're a team from Winston-Salem State University. We have a team of occupational faculty and physical therapy faculty and clinicians that are working on this grant. So we received this grant in May 2019. It's a 3-year capacity building grant through the Administration of Community Living. And we are targeting specific areas and counties, as you can see over here in North Carolina. Most of these are rural, underserved areas, trying to bring fall prevention programs to these areas. So the 3 programs we have been focusing on is the YMCA Tai Chi for Moving for Better Balance, the Matter Balance, and Otago. So prior to COVID, all of these programs were delivered in person. And now this summer, we've had to kind of learn how to go virtual and how to problem solve through still serving these communities and reaching out to our partners. So a couple of questions we've started with as a grant team is just kind of asking ourselves, in order to feed our programs, we like to go and do fall screens to see who's most appropriate, to figure out if they would be better for Tai Chi or Togo. And so how do we do that virtually? And so some of the questions we asked is, will it even work virtually to do the fall screens? Are there ways to organize that? Can we make it safe? And indeed, we are able to do that. And will it predict fall risks accurately? If we revise the study is typically what we use. So we're working on collecting that and still trying to answer that question. What's the best way to get consent virtually for these adults? And can we still maintain their confidentiality even when we're in a virtual setting and use a HIPAA compliant program? So we've been using Zoom. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And how could we recruit older adults to be a part of these fall screens? So pulling in partners within those counties, local people that we know, still using our contacts at YMCAs, senior centers, the libraries, all of those contacts we have. And will the participants be able to manage the technology? So that was a big question we had, and we were really pleasantly surprised that yes, our participants were able to use the technology and they were able to use the resources we gave them in advance. And with some troubleshooting, we were able to get them through the screens. So some first steps that we took, the first hurdle was just finding the technology that was going to be HIPAA compliant. So we were able to use, through our university account, a Zoom healthcare for healthcare providers. So it is HIPAA compliant, but certainly I would look into whatever you have access to. There are other things out there. And then we had to develop this digital consent form and a way to organize the documentation. And so we did go through our legal office to get approval for that consent form. And we were able to use a password protected Google Doc in order to document the fall screen. So whatever information we were collecting and the results of any of the tests that we were doing, we were able to put it in electronically and submit it. And it was a really, really easy system for all of us to use, and then it pulled it all together. We also needed to figure out a scheduling system. So figuring out how many therapists you have available and scheduling from there, trying to figure out your time frames to make sure your participants aren't waiting too long, but also that you're able to get people kind of in and out like we do when we're typically in person. Then we also spent some time developing training material for the team members, and we also had our students volunteer for this. So our physical therapy and occupational therapy students were able to be a part of this, and we just created some training videos so that we all were on the same page when we showed up to the virtual fall screens, and we all knew kind of what our role was. We pre-assigned roles, so everyone had their job and they knew what they were supposed to do so it could be a little smoother. And we also developed tutorials for the participants. So we sent out some information for them. There's a resource here for you, a link if you want to check this out. But we just wanted to make sure that they knew what we were expecting of them. So we made a video for them, how to set up their home to be safe. So, you know, making sure their chair's in the right place, kind of talking about what type of chair is safe. And also just, we wanted to assess if there's anyone there with them and kind of what their situation is that we'll be virtually entering into. And so that was really important. And I think it also gives them an opportunity to use technology before we all come together for this screen. And then we also developed a recruitment flyer and developed kind of a list of partners to share that with in the community. So like I said earlier, we were targeting the same counties that we normally would target, and so we were using those same resources that we had. And then this just got a lot easier because of all the resources we were just given, but we wanted to gather all the links for fall prevention so that we were able to provide the participants with these resources. And I thank you, all of you on that committee that just developed that document, because I think the homework is done. So just going on there and pulling some of those links and making sure that your participants will be able to get to those. And then we also needed to figure out the best time of day for our older adults to do this. So for us, we're used to hosting our Tago and Tai Chi programs in the morning, and so that made sense for the population that we were going to, but we wanted to make it as convenient as possible so that we could really meet their needs, because that was our purpose here. And then after we were able to work with them, we would gather these links, and so we knew exactly what to give them. And so in our documentation form, it was an opportunity for the person who was screening them to say, you know, I think this would be a good one. We had different boxes you could click, so it kind of made it a little bit more organized. So here's an example of our screen. So here's a picture pre-COVID where we were able to take our PT students, this is one of our students here, into the community and do these fall screens. So we just kind of carried forward this flyer and were able to come up with 3 different dates to offer these screens. So a few tips for using Zoom for these screens is making sure that your account is HIPAA compliant and unlimited for participants. So you want to make sure that it's not the free trial, because you don't know how many people are going to sign up. We had a high volume of people sign up, so you want to make sure you have space. And I would say this is one of the biggest things, is having what we call our Wizard of Oz. So someone who their only job was to run the technology during the screen. So we would assign a licensed therapist with our student into rooms, but there was one person who was kind of shuffling people around and always keeping an eye to make sure no one was lost or ended up in a room that they didn't need to be in, maintaining that confidentiality. We also had a team member that was in charge of kind of answering IT questions for participants. So anticipate phone calls, emails, maybe they can log into Zoom and they can't figure out how to use their video and things like that. So it took a team member to be able to full-time kind of answer those questions. And then staggering your schedule to make sure that you have the space, and then using the waiting room on Zoom was really helpful so that we were able to maintain confidentiality. So we use Zoom breakout rooms, so a licensed clinician and then a student were assigned to a room, and they stayed in the room the whole time, and then the Wizard of Oz was able to send in new participants, and then when you were done, you just asked them to leave. Sometimes you have to coach them through how to leave the room, and then the person kind of running the show would send in a next participant. And then we just documented as we went. So one person would document, one person would screen, just depending on the student, and we kind of go back and forth so everyone had an opportunity. Dr. Gardner, are you there?
Yes, I had to unmute, sorry.
That's okay.
I was taken off with no, while I was still muted. So I'm Laverine, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happens when people get into their breakout room. So for our virtual fall risk screenings, we developed a tool that consists of various subjective questions relating to fall risk and functional level that helps us determine whether to proceed with performing physical tests and measures such as those contained within this study. So I think our grant team overall has been pleasantly surprised at how clear it is whether or not we should progress forwards with using physical tests and measures with older adults in the home. I think that our clinical judgment and experience has been very useful at helping us make those decisions. We have loved using students, but I think it is important to remember that students will probably require a lot of supervision during these activities because they just don't have the clinical experience making those types of decisions on their own. So during the screening process, at the end, we make a judgment call about whether or not we feel like the participant is appropriate for virtual Otago. So our first offering of virtual programming, evidence-based fall prevention programming, was just Otago. So that was what we had access to that we could offer quickly. So we needed to decide whether or not we felt like someone was really high level and maybe they needed to be put on a wait list for for a Tai Chi program that we could hopefully we'll actually start offering in the fall, or whether they were appropriate to do Otago at home virtually in a group format, or whether they were best suited for maybe more of a home health and traditional approach to Otago. So we make a judgment call about which we think is best, and then we'll talk to the client about that. And then following their visit, every client gets an email that tells them how they can pursue whatever option it is that we are recommending. So additionally, we send them links regarding what particular documents from the study website that we feel like are best for that individual. Another thing that we did during our assessments was we asked individuals to rate their health as excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. So we had an online program that we could refer them to regarding healthy living that was offered through AAA. So Christina's already given me the next slide. So this is an image of our fall risk screening team along with many of our students. So we have a great team and have been very well supported by the students, and the students have really enjoyed being involved in this process. And I think right now it's been really valuable because it gives us the opportunity to allow them to get some clinical hours, especially for students that have missed their first clinical and so forth. So next slide, Christina. So our current progress. So we have had 3 different fall risk screenings, and I think we took about 3 hours. We offered, each screening was an hour long, and we screened 43 total participants on those 3 days. Unfortunately, there was a high attrition rate. So we had 76 people that signed up, and those people were signed up, if we went from 11 to 12, maybe 15 were scheduled at 11, 15 were scheduled at 11:15, 15 at 11:30. And so forth, and only about 60% of those people actually showed up for their visit. So of those 43 people that we screened, we referred 25 to virtual Otago, and we just actually completed our first virtual Otago class, for which we had 11 people sign up. So out of the 25 people we referred, we had 11 people that wanted to participate in the program, and 8 of those actually completed the program. So we felt like for a virtual program for our first time, 8 out of 11 was pretty great. And we didn't have anyone fall or get injured in the program performing it virtually. And I know Christina helped lead that class, and I led it once. We've had several students lead the class, and then Allie, our adjunct faculty through the grant, has helped lead it, and we have felt great about it. Offering it, that I haven't ever felt like there was a big safety issue or anything for the clients going through the program. So 9 of the participants that went through the fall risk screening, 9 out of the 43 we screened, were recommended to be placed on a waiting list for a higher level program. So we are hoping this fall to be able to offer Tai Chi. So those individuals would be more appropriate for something other than a basic Otago class. And then 9 of the participants were left on a waiting list for future in-person type classes such as Otago. And then we have another one scheduled in another fall prevention screening scheduled in August. So our future plans, we are hoping to, we have several goals for the fall and then really one for the new year. So I think our team's self-efficacy for being able to provide these services virtually has really grown in the past few months. So we're really looking to kind of beef up what we're offering virtually now. So we're hoping that this fall we can offer a virtual Moving for Better Balance, which is a Tai Chi program, in partnership with the Northwest YMCA in North Carolina. And we are planning to offer virtual fall screens in a few weeks, and then again for Fall Prevention Week. And this year in our Neuro 1 class, we're planning to offer our second years, who are all certified in Otago, the opportunity to coach and serve as accountability partners to an older adult that's going through the Otago program virtually. So they will get to help lead a class and also be an accountability partner for individuals going through the Otago process. Also, our grant is as Christina said earlier, is a collaboration between the PT and OT departments here at Winston-Salem State. So our OTs are awesome, and they help with fall risk screenings on a regular basis, but Dr. Edwards-Collins actually is a master matter of balance trainer. So we are hoping that in January, we'll be able to offer virtual matter of balance when the virtual option actually becomes available. And then finally, we are hoping to be able to possibly add some questions to our screening questions regarding social isolation and depression. And then we also hope to be able to just disseminate the results from our preliminary pilot work. And then last here, we just have a slide for questions. So if anyone has any questions, everyone on the team is here, so we're happy to take any of those. And then if you want to email someone, you can reach out to Dr. Migliarese or Dr. Edwards-Collins.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. If you guys can put any questions you have in chat, just because if we have a bunch of people unmute, it would be a lot of interesting noise in the background. I know one that I have that potentially some other people might have. It sounds like you said it took about 15 minutes per person. Is that correct? Per participant for that screen?
Yeah, give or take.
I think it depends on the person.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Too.
Just like every other patient, right?
Yes.
What about, and are those training videos, are they going to be available, or would you be willing to make them available? And can you kind of provide more details on those, the videos and the roles? So the videos training that you had for the participants, and then the videos that you had for the students and roles.
Sarah, do you want to answer that? I think
everybody's waiting to answer. Yes, we will be happy to share. The videos are not, you know, Oscar-winning videos, but we don't mind if you share. Some of them say Winston-Salem State, but if you just want to use them as a guide to figure out what you want to put in your video, ours seem to do the trick. So we have a safety video that we're happy to share and can get that to Jennifer so she can disseminate that. And then now the training videos are specific to Zoom. So like the training videos for the students and how to use some of that information is specific to Zoom. So if you would like that, if that's helpful, that's fine. The Zoom tutorial that was created by Rush there's a link to that already, and it's on the NCOA website. So it's already ready to go. It was great. We used it as is. We didn't change that at all. And then I think those were all the videos that we created, and we're busy trying to get our first manuscript out so that we can share more details about a detailed description of the process. So we're busy providing programming and trying to get it in a written format so that we can disseminate it to more people.
Thank you, and let us know as soon as that's coming out so we can promote it as well. We'll figure out how to share the videos. In the future, we'll be sending it in a BF-SIG email. So some other questions that are coming through. One is, was there any specific instruction for the participants to safely perform exercises at home?
So during the Otago, well, when we first initially screen someone, we meet with the student that's going to be their coach, and the student contacts them to tell them what they need to do for safety during the class. So we always have the person starts in a chair typically, and so they have a sturdy chair there that is not rolling, and they have shoes on their feet. Those are some of the education that we kind of preload with on the front end. And so I would say other than that, we do give them a book that talks about the Otago in general, that goes through all the exercises and what they're supposed to do for their home program as well. Someone else asked about the special equipment. So Otago does require weights, and we did not provide weights to people, but people can make weights by taking like a tube sock and filling them with beans. So that is one low-cost way that we use to kind of compensate for that. that issue.
And I know other ways are cans, gallons of milk, or any sort of household things that weigh similar weights. Sarah, were you going to add something?
Well, I was just looking through some of the questions, and I think what would be helpful too is to know that we had extra people sort of as an extra set of eyes to give correction, instruction, feedback during the virtual Otago classes. So, because the instructor is really sort of demonstrating everything and unable to watch all 11, people as they exercise. So as far as like giving instruction, it was nice to have an extra person to sort of watch everybody move and give feedback if they thought they were doing something that could be improved upon. So it's nice to have at least 2 people in the class, an instructor and then someone, kind of eyeballs on the class.
And so I think some other questions are, you talked about some of the resources and sharing them. Could you tell them about how you determined if it was appropriate to perform physical function measures and which ones you specifically use?
Lava, do you want to handle that?
Sure. So we have specific questions that we ask, like, have you had any falls in the last year? Do you use an assisted device to walk? Things like that that kind of give us an idea of their functional level. And then if they don't have anyone in the home to help guard them that's able-bodied, then we may not proceed with physical tests at that point. So from a simplest perspective, then we'll kind of think about whether or not someone can get up out of a chair independently. And then we'll move on to possibly performing the tug.
And I think you said,
go ahead, Jennifer.
Go ahead, no.
Just, we didn't do the 4-stage balance during the virtual screenings themselves, but we did end up doing that test in our pre and post testing for our study. So we're doing an IRB study along with this for all the participants. And while we didn't do all the study activities during the fall risk assessments, we did during our pre and post testing. And again, everybody, we just had a big emphasis on safety and education and making sure they were in a corner and had their chair up against the wall. And if they, especially in our questions that we asked in the beginning, if it looked like they used an assistive device for gait and didn't have a caregiver with them, like Dr. Garner mentioned, then we definitely wouldn't have progressed to a harder test, like the tug, where they might get off screen, right? They're walking their 10 feet and they're off screen and then coming back. So we were very conservative.
And you said you used study materials. Did you use the Stay Independent brochure as well, the questionnaire?
So at the end of our Google Doc, we have several choices that we can recommend. So there are different flyers, like the postural hypotension flyer, that we can click. So the therapist decides what resources need emailed, and then Allie, who is should be sainted for dealing with all of us, she sends them out to people afterwards, which has been great.
But they didn't fill out the Stay Independent survey from study. They didn't do that ahead of time, but it's my understanding that on an August 4th call through NCOA, they just had a sort of grand rounds meeting today at lunch, that they're going to have a digital version of that they're rolling out on the August 4th call, where they'll also talk about resources for National Fall Prevention Week. So if you're really, I'm excited to see that. So they may have some form of that survey that someone can go in online and digitally complete to decide sort of what to do next. I don't know, we haven't seen it. Doesn't get rolled out until August 4th, but be on that call, because that should be exciting too.
Someone asked about tablets and access, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit because we typically serve a very underserved minority population at Winston-Salem State. So we just analyzed the data yesterday, myself and Dr. Smith, who's on the call, and we actually noticed that a lot of the people that participated in our initial screenings were people that lived in neighborhoods that are traditionally very underserved, and we haven't had any issues with people not having a cell phone or something that they could access it with. We would love to be able to provide tablets, but that hasn't been something that we have pursued so far. And thus far have not had a need, but it may be that people that don't have a tablet just don't reach out and sign up for the program either.
Sarah, it looks like, Sarah and Laverne, it looks like you guys are looking at the chat. If you just want to go ahead and answer them, I won't intervene.
Okay. There's some questions about students. We're a small program. We only take 28 OT students a year, 28 PT students a year. So it's not an overwhelming number of students. We kind of divide them. They don't all 28 show up at once. But if you had that many during an assessment, you just put them all in a breakout room and they could work in pairs. So we don't have a huge number of students. Is there an ideal number of students? I would think in a breakout room, ideal would be at least 3. If you had someone doing the assessments, somebody watching really close, someone else documenting, that would be ideal. That's a lot of folks doing assessments, but you could make that work. I mean, one person can do it by themselves. It might just take 20 minutes because you're having to document, you know, and wait. So it's not impossible to do it by yourself either. We just have the wonderful blessing and good fortune to have students who can help us.
And I was the one that ran the breakout rooms, and we had 10. One screening, we had 10 breakout rooms going at once. So basically what would happen would be we would let the participants in from the waiting room. We would tell them what was going to happen in the breakout, in the initial waiting room, send them to their breakout room with their student, and we had a clinician in there as well. And so they had supervision while they were performing the screen. Otherwise, the licensed therapist was in there performing the screening, and the discussion basically happened between the student physical therapist and or the student occupational therapist and the occupational therapist, and to make the determination of what was most appropriate. So basically, you know, kind of managing that process, I would say that you just have to make sure that who's ever running the Zoom meeting, excuse my cat, is, you know, has the ability to kind of run multiple things at once. We also encouraged our students and our faculty to use the Get Help feature. So there's a question mark that they can call the person who's running the meeting into the room. So sometimes I would pop into the room, they'd raise their hand, I'd pop into the breakout room and then answer their question and then pop back out. And I'd also pop back into the empty room to let them know if there were people waiting or not, and to just check to see if they needed additional support.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. There was a question about the handout, and you bet we'll share our PowerPoint with you, no problem. There was another question about the consent and liability, and while our consent was designed to cover Winston-Salem State employees, you know, faculty and students, and of course the university, if something happened, anybody could sue anytime. It doesn't, like it says, oh, we're going to hold everybody, you know, harmless, but that doesn't mean someone wouldn't unfortunately try to sue. Did it cover Otago? No, we did not specifically in our consent list the 3, hopefully potentially 3 virtual programs that we'll offer. It was just to cover the school. Hopefully that answered your question about the consent.
I wanted to go back and comment on the accountability partner question again. I'm getting ready to set that up for fall semester for our students. So we have, like Sarah said, a class of 28. So each participant that goes through Otago will have 2 to 3 students that are responsible for following up with them in a group format. So each client that is going through Otago will have a group coach, essentially, because we have more students than participants, we're thinking. And so one student will follow up with a client each week. So that way it's not too onerous on the student, and but the client is still getting consistent follow-up from the same person.
And
So
I see Dr. Hartman's on our call and can maybe answer the questions about the emergency contact information and how the classes were set up. There were some questions about whether they were individual or group. I don't know, Allie, if you can answer those.
Yes, hopefully can you all hear me? I'm under my husband's alias. I'm Allie, not Jake. But yeah, so we also, one thing to clarify in the sign up for the virtual fall screening, we did collect their emergency contact information and the actual physical address of the location that they would be completing the screening, just in case, God forbid, something happened and we needed to call 911. We would know where to send them to. And that was something we picked up from another webinar, an NCOA webinar previously. There was a question about how do you assess improvement if you cannot get in-person pre and post. So the purpose of the actual screening was not necessarily improvement. Like we didn't say come to the screening and then have a follow-up screening thereafter. It was really just to identify a person's risk level and really most importantly, identify based on their risk level, what are safe options for them to exercise at home. Because one of my big, I guess, like pedestals I'll get on and shout from the mountaintops is that we're so afraid to provide these programs and that people are going to fall. But all I can sit and think about is how many people will fall if we're too afraid to provide these programs in this time. So that was one of the big goals of this screening event, was really less so about tracking progress, but more identifying where a person's at so we can send them safe resources for staying as active as they can at home, even if it's just seated leg raises or chair squats, to something as advanced as hopefully getting them into our Tai Chi program. So hopefully that answers that. Now, for our actual Otago program, we did complete pre and post measures, and we did them exactly as close as we could to how we would do them in person, obviously with some modifications.
And let's go ahead and finish up these last few questions. And then we'd still like to share a couple other things and allow other people to share ideas or ask other questions as well. So if you guys can follow up with the last, I think 4, 5 questions maybe.
There was one about sharing the information with the primary care provider. They certainly can. We did not, but they could share with their primary care provider, and we did the same thing in person. If they wanted to take their results, they could certainly do that. Of course, the Otago class was a virtual group session. They really liked the social interaction of that. I think we've answered that one pretty good. Let's see. I think those were most of those, unless any other team members see anything that we've missed.
So Sarah, there was a question about the workflow to recommend referral to individualized therapy or Otago. What was that like? So
who would like to take that one? Anybody? I will.
You want to talk about that? Because you have to develop that.
So,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the?
Don't be
sorry,
shy.
go ahead, Lava.
okay, I'll go for it. So when we determine whether or not to send someone for Otago, essentially what we do is if they can make it through the tug, we feel like they're probably okay to perform the group exercise class at home. And so that's really one of the main things that we use to make that choice about whether or not they're going to go to the virtual Otago or whether we think they need to go and have Otago one-on-one in the house. So I would say that's kind of the way we made that decision. I hope that answers that question well enough. I think sometimes people got referred probably a little bit outside of that based on the therapist's clinical judgment as well. So you really would be, I know as a student, people always told me, I can remember doing the anterior drawer on someone's knee for the first time and being like, well, how will I know if it's positive? But you will be able to tell whether someone is able to do something like Otago and hold onto a chair and follow your commands pretty well in the virtual setting. I think most people on the team would agree with that, but they can certainly comment otherwise if they feel differently.
So there was a question about what did we mean by making it through the tug?
So if we felt like they could do the tug, even if they scored over 12 seconds, we would still, if they were safe doing the tug on their own, then we would allow them to do the virtual Otago program.
And it sounds like you did not have any falls in that, any adverse events virtually
No.
while people were attending. And I think another question was, were there any modifications? You modified per the Otago. So you followed the Otago per, you didn't go beyond any other modification than what was recommended in the evidence-based Otago.
Nope.
Great.
Right, and because we're a grantee, we had to maintain fidelity, and so we couldn't, you know, get off our sheet of music too far. So while we met with Tiffany Schubert, we met with the UNC team there that sort of oversees Otago. Before we started any of this, we met with the NCOA, so we got everybody's blessing along the way that our version, the virtual version, maintained fidelity and would still be considered evidence-based.
Well, thank you guys. Yes.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course, of course.
One of the things that I think our participants, we just got done with our post-testing for Otago, and one of the things that consistently came up was how much the participants loved having the student coaches. So if that's an option for you and you look to implement those programs, these older adults are in their homes by themselves all day with minimal contact with the outside world. So I think these weekly phone calls from these somewhat random physical therapy students really helps boost their morale.
Now we are implementing a Parkinson's specific power exercise program virtually right now. It was in person. We aren't using students, but we're using a coach virtually. And the older adults are actually enjoying the virtual one and really like the ease that they can get on and not have to travel to it and deal with traffic and parking. So they missed the social interaction, but it actually was surprising, those results.
And someone asked about the 30-second chair rise. We did do that. We did that first in a safe environment.
And we did ask them about recent blood pressure and whether they had been to a healthcare provider to have blood pressure examined. Some of them did have cuffs in their home, so if they did have an automatic cuff in their home, we asked them to take their blood pressure prior to the screening.
Can you do a clip and or share your email in the chat box in case people didn't get a chance to write it down for further questions? I'm sorry we have to cut it short. I just try to stay on time because I know everyone's busy. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for offering to share the resources. Again, we'll get that out to you guys, the rest of the people that are interested. And I just wanted to share a couple other things which Sarah had already mentioned were NCOA resources as well. But there is a webinar coming up on August 4th. And hold on a second here. This is our student monthly highlight. If you are a BF SIG member, you get these. Brett Wright, who's on the call, wrote this month. And we have Holly Bennett, who also helps. And it's just kind of up-to-date information on falls prevention. So since we're talking about Falls Prevention Awareness Week, this is a lot about that. We've got the webinars listed here. So you can, if you're a member, you'll get these August 4th, or you can look on NCOA. You definitely are going to want to attend that if you want other resources as well. APTA Geriatrics is also hosting a webinar on August 18th. And you'll also see other information about up-to-date articles, etc., coming through. Other things we have for the Balance and Falls things are Balance and Falls bi-weekly blurbs. We'll send you information about, again, different articles, and our monthly challenge, which is open to anyone. So Holly, Heidi, or Haim, did you want to talk about the monthly challenge briefly, and I will try and pull one up, the most recent one up here.
Yeah, I think Haim jumped off the call to go handle something with his business, but I am happy to talk about the monthly challenge. So the monthly challenge is essentially an email list, and every month we email directly to you some information on some topic related to falls prevention. It's been going on for, man, I want to say three and a half years maybe. It's all starting to blur together. But every month you get an email. We currently have over 200 subscribers, which is really awesome. But it just gives you a lot of information on, you know, different topics, and usually there's an email and then some type of handout. We tried to design the handout to be something that you could easily print off and then post on the wall of a workroom to try to garner discussion from maybe your colleagues who aren't as familiar with falls prevention, or try to establish some change within your clinical setting. I started the monthly challenge several years ago, and our current co-clinical liaisons, Haim and Stephanie, are the ones who are currently authoring it. But it's new information every month. And you know, we've gotten some really positive feedback from it. If you are interested in being a part of that mailing list, you just need to email us. You do not have to be a SIG member to access that, although we do highly encourage you to become a SIG member because there's a lot of other benefits. But I will put our email in the chat, so then you can email us and let us know if you would like to be added to that list, and you'll get it directly to your inbox on August 1st.
Thank you. Another thing I'd like to note is, again, NCOA. Sarah talked about the grand rounds for grantees. They're actually open to everybody, and you can re-look at them, but it's looking at how to virtually remotely deliver different programs, and it's really a grassroots effort, and she could talk more of it. I haven't been on those calls myself, but I've heard that they're very interesting. You've also got media toolkits, et cetera, available, and then APTA Geriatrics has webinars, this one coming up. This one was excellent, clinical community connections, and that is actually how I learned about Winston-Salem State's work, was through that webinar, and that's a great webinar to listen to. It kind of gives you what's out there right now, what's available virtually. Let's see, does anyone have anything they can share, potentially if you are doing a lot of telehealth and you've been doing virtual assessments, how that's working, lessons learned, any other specific questions? You could put in the chat, please. If no one has any specific questions about that, feel free to, again, share or ask. Oh, we also wanted to put on our toolkit, we've got the Senior Olympic Games resources as well. Beth Black is on here. If you want to talk about that briefly, I can try and pull that up.
Good evening. Yeah, all the senior games have been canceled for the summer, unfortunately. But the tool itself is great, and I encourage you all to look at it and see how you might be able to apply it either to community events or to your own practice.
It's me trying to share the correct screen. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Higher level participants too, so that's good to share
Yes,
for higher level older adults.
So this was a tool that was created, organized by Dr. Becca Georgia from South Dakota. She's collected a lot of data about how it applies to not just older adults, but athletes who are older adults. And last year we had the National Senior Games that we had a task force that used the tools, developed handouts, and the handouts are available. You can download those online too. You can see those now on the screen.
I messed up. It was Eastern.
Oops, somebody, it's Easter. What's the dangers of Zoom? I'll stop them now. Okay, I think looks like we are, is anyone using a drive-in movie format for delivering physical activity or group exercise? Janet, what do you mean by that? Can you?
Hi, so it's something that we were in talks with, I'm with the New Mexico Falls Prevention Coalition, and we've been meeting with the Albuquerque Department of Senior Affairs, and they were the ones that proposed it, that they were thinking about ways to bring seniors together for physical activity, but still maintain social distancing. In Albuquerque, all senior centers are closed, and they expect to be closed till at least late fall. And so, you know, they proposed that. They were looking into pricing to get the equipment. And we also talked about if we could leverage maybe some church group that has parking lot services, and they already have some equipment. But we just started to think about it, but if anyone has had any experience, it would be helpful. I can envision someone standing outside of their car. Now, it's a lot easier in a place like Albuquerque where we only get, you know, 6 or 7 inches of rain a year. But, you know, to have everyone on one side of their car, and the cars are spaced, and they're listening from maybe their car radio. We kind of just started talking it through, but any thoughts or feedback would be, you know, help the process.
What an amazing idea. That just sounds great. We'll have you on the next call. You can let us know how that goes.
You know, I will share one other idea that we were doing when the COVID, you know, if everything kind of started with COVID and everyone was going into social isolation. The New Mexico Falls Prevention Coalition was able to partner with the AAA for the metro Albuquerque area. And they disseminated some of the steady resources through their meal delivery program. Meal delivery, and they also had a curbside pickup. So people that had been going to a meal site to get their, you know, to get lunch, who were able to drive and pick up curbside. And so they were disseminating fall prevention information one particular week, probably I think it was in April. But that might be something for people to think about, how they might be able to connect with their senior services to disseminate information. In addition, what we were told by the director of senior affairs for Albuquerque is that, you know, it's different from state to state, but many states are keeping their senior centers closed. But senior center directors are charged with trying to develop virtual programming or to identify. So you may connect with your senior centers and offer a fall prevention presentation in September as a way to do a virtual awareness event. And it seems like there's more and more interest in that.
Thank you so much, Janet. So thank you, everyone. It looks like there are tons of resources available, not just through APTA Geriatrics via SIG, but many other areas. We just need to share and help disseminate and do what we can. That's why we're all on the call. We will continue to do that for you guys as well on our end. And please also share any ideas you have with APTA, Balance and Falls, sig@gmail.com, and we would love to disseminate it to others. We're all in it together. Thank you also for our guest speakers and for our SIG Executive Committee for all your hard work. Appreciate you all being on the call. Again, this is recorded for anyone that you know who wants to watch it or watch it and was unable to attend. We'll also have some kind of pearls, so minutes basically, that's coming out once we put it together. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Rams.
Thank you.